As a rule, I always say that entrepreneurs speak French, angels speak German. My job is to translate. Oh, it could have been a pin drop. So my heart's racing. As you can imagine, I'm stood up in front of this room. I've got all the great and the good. I spoke to 23 different groups and I asked them the question, how do they value a business at this stage? And I stopped asking it after number 8. They turned him down and they said, we want to take a different strategy and that strategy doesn't involve you. He had less than half of 1% of the shares in his own business. Came back to me 2 years later, he walked into my office, he sat down in front of me and he burst into tears.
This is the Leeds Business Podcast and I'm your host, Phil Fraser. Before we start, I have one simple request of you. Please hit the subscribe or follow button on the app that you're listening on. This week's episode is a really educational one. If you've ever considered or are currently thinking about getting angel investment on board, you must listen this week. What is angel investment? How do I get it? What do I include in the pitch deck? How do I value my business? What should I not do when I'm pitching for business? We speak to Martin Avison, founder of Angel Groups, as he gives us all the answers you need to know about angel investment. On today's Leeds Business Podcast, I'm delighted to have with me Martin Avison, founder and MD of Angel Groups. Good morning, Martin.
Hi, Phil. Good morning.
Now, we are going to talk all about angel investing today because Martin is an expert on the topic. But Martin, tell us about your early career and how you got into angel investing to begin with.
60 years of age, quite a long career, Phil. So I started out life in actual fact as an illustrator, as a graphic designer, a long time ago working at Waddington's in Leeds, where I actually illustrated Diana's and Charles's wedding stamps, as well as lots of other stamps for the Commonwealth. I quickly realised that whilst I was okay, my ability was so-so. So I realised that my future probably lay more in selling it than doing it. I worked my way up to being group sales and marketing director within a printing group, and it got bought out by a VC. Didn't really want to work for a VC, so I decided no, that wasn't for me. So I went out kind of consulting, working for businesses, showing them how to grow and scale, and I quickly realised I could scale businesses quicker than they could fund them, which is what got me interested in the funding aspect.
Right. Okay. And now, as founder of Angel Groups, it's 24/7 angel investing for you. So let's start right at the beginning. What is angel investing and angel investment?
It's individuals, people like you, investing in early stage businesses for equity stake within the business. So this is risk capital. This is not debt. It's not where you have to repay the money. You're buying shares within a business and there's certain tax breaks associated with that. And then what you're hoping for is a great return on the upside. But on average, that can take up to 9 years before companies are actually getting to an exit. So it can take a little while. You will get losses in that time from an investment point of view, and you will get winners. And it's more of a numbers game than anything else.
Okay, so the key point from an angel investor's point of view is A, it's high risk, B, it's long term, and you will lose some money along the way.
It depends on your approach. We tend to have two types of angel. We have what we call our professional investors who play what I call a portfolio game. And this is where the science is. This is what I did my master's around because I wanted to understand it. So you build a big enough portfolio and overall the science says you get a 2.3 times return on your money. And then we've got our angels who stay in their lane. These are experts, domain experts, sector knowledge, deep understanding. They understand the supply chain. They've got all the contacts, and they add real value to the other type of investors, the professional investors, but the other investors around the table because they can be a lead and they bring so much value into the equation.
So let's look at the other side of it from a business point of view. What sort of businesses would benefit from angel investment?
It needs to be high growth potential. Businesses have got a fundamental challenge. You get to a stage on your business journey and you've got to be able to fund growth. Now, if you make a decision as a founder, I'm a founder, I understand. You make a conscious decision. Am I going to grow organically and I'll retain all my shares? I won't bring in any debt, but you will slow your growth trajectory down. Or do I go in and bring external funding? I've then got two choices. I bring in either debt, which requires usually some form of guarantee, some kind of asset that you've got to put up against that debt, or you're going to bring in equity, which doesn't require a guarantee. But you are selling shares within your business. So there's some fundamental basics, and I couldn't tell anybody what they should do because it's their business and they've got to believe in what's right for them.
The thing to remember as a business owner from what you just said is with debt, you're not losing 100% control of your business. With equity, you are giving away or exchanging some of your business for that money that you need to power the business.
Indeed you are. And you've got to be comfortable with that. I mean, angels, and I realize this is it's important you spend time fighting. It's not just about the money. It's about the experience. It's about the connection. Yeah, but they don't want a job. They don't want to be running your business. They've run a business. They want to help. They want to give you their time, their experience, but they don't want to run your business for you. They just want to help you become successful. Well, again, it's a chasm. It's a leap. You've got to feel very, very comfortable, very, very comfortable indeed in that decision process as to what is right for you as an individual.
And as a business, when you're looking for angel investment, what are the key things they should be looking out for in terms of the investors they bring on?
Fundamentally, there's two types of investment. There's angel investment, and then there's your kind of more institutional VC type of investment. I could spend days talking about the difference between the two, but
That'd be a long episode.
It would be a long episode. But if you're looking angel investment, because of the rules around the tax breaks, they have to come in with the same class of share. They're not allowed what we call preferential status. So because of that, you are protected from a rogue element, a rogue angel doing anything that untoward. Whereas with a VC, they may not be a fund, an EIS qualifying fund, SCIS qualifying fund. And the fundamental difference is they're investing other people's money. They're not investing their money. So because they have a different set of rules, and what people, they never seem to appreciate, which I find strange, but when a VC gives you £2 million, they have what we call preferences. And the first thing they do is when you exit, they take their £2 million back before you get anything. So is it really equity? Was that just a loan by another name that's now wrapped up as equity that they can convert? So I'm not saying anything wrong with that. What I'm saying is that there is a big difference between the two and understanding them. But if there's one fundamental difference that I would implore everybody to look at is the drag-along clause. So with angel investment, you, the business, the founder, have the drag-along clause. And what that means is when you want to make a decision in your business and you want to exit, you can drag your investors into that deal. What a VC does is they change the drag-along clause to them. Now, not in all cases, but that means that they can sell the business when they want. And they drag you into the deal because their fund is closing. Funds tend to typically last maybe 10 years. You've got 2-3 years to find, 4 years to deploy and grow the money, 3 years to get out. At the end of it, they've got to close the fund. So they need a mechanism that allows them to do so. So that is a fundamental difference that people they've got to get their head around, is whether it's right for the business or not, they've got to close the fund, they've got to sell.
Just going back one stage, you talked about the motivations of angel investors, and you said, they want to help, they want to give their time. Some want to get involved, some don't want to get involved, they want to share their experience. I think this is always interesting for business owners to understand. Angel investors obviously we want a return on our money, but that's not the main priority, is it?
Research suggests it is.
Okay.
Research suggests altruism is a key part, giving back, helping people. I've got investors that only want to invest within a certain geographical boundary because they want to help the town, the city from where they come, because they have that connection. But the research overridingly states that angels are doing it for a return. It's part of a portfolio, and I could tell you a real story about that one, but it really is part of that portfolio mix.
Okay, tell us that story then.
Well, when I first pitched for investment, so I was group sales director, I left, I went to join two of the guys, we set up a fintech type business, and we pitched in Edinburgh for £3 million. We'd got 15 angels in the room, and they do it very differently in Scotland. They give everybody all the paperwork and everything else, and they only turn up if they're interested. We got to the end of the pitch, and somebody raised a glass of wine and said, "We're in." So they made the decision at the pitch. So I went up to the governor of the Bank of Scotland, Bill, and I said to Bill, I said, "Thank you for your 100,000, because 15 people giving us 100,000 and Scottish Enterprise matching it with 1.5 million. So I went up to Bill and I said, "Bill, thank you very much." And he says, "Oh, not a problem, Martin." He says, "Tell me, what do you do?" And I said to him, I says, "That's a fascinating question, Bill." I says, "Do you often give 100,000 to someone without knowing what they do?" And he says, "All the time." He says, "And I guarantee you, if you go around this room, they won't know what you do either." So being the kind of person I am, I said, "Look, I've got to find out, Bill. I've just got to find out." So I went round the room, got back to Bill, slightly worse for wear because I was having a glass of wine. I was feeling top of the world. I just raised £3 million. So I got to Bill and I said, "All right, Bill, you're going to have to educate me, please." I says, "What's just happened?" And he said to me, he says, "That's easy, Martin." He says, "Look at the room. We've got the chairman of Scottish Widows, the chairman of Lloyds Bank. We've got some really influential people in this room." He says, "When any one of those speak, Martin," he says, "industry will listen." He says, "But there's not one of them," he says, "that understands technology. Not one of them." And we were a fintechy type business. He says, "But more importantly," he says, "there's not one of them that doesn't understand people." He says, "Now you've got a grade A team." He says, "Wouldn't matter what you did, we'd have backed you." He said, "So we're just backing your ability to make decisions." Business is all about being able to, he says, manage a changing environment. He says, and you've got to have the skill set and the management team around you to do that. He says, "You've got that as a team." He says, "We don't rely on technology in the bank." He says, "I rely on people to make good decisions. We might use technology to roll that out." He says, "But it's down to people." So he then turned round to me and he said to me, and this brought me crashing down to earth. And he said, "What you've got to understand, Martin," he says, "is I don't care if you make it." I said to him, I says, "Well, Bill," I says, "I don't understand why you would say that to me." I says, "Even if you thought it." He says, "You're an asset class, Martin." He says, "You're just like wine, property, art, anything else." He says, "Now I know," he says, "if I build a big enough asset base," he says, "I know I get a 2.3 times return." It's called portfolio theory. invented by a gentleman called Markowitz, 2.3 times return on my overall portfolio. He said, so I'm happy enough to put you in that portfolio. He says, but I accept that a number of people will have to go bust. He says, now for you personally, I hope it's not you. He says, but he says, if it is, he says, I accept that risk. And so that was a baptism of fire for me, Phil. And, on the back of that, once I'd exited that company, I went to do a master's around angel investment because I wanted to understand portfolio theory.
Right. Fascinating story. Fascinating story. You just dropped in there. In Scotland, they do it differently to the way we do it. So just give us an outline as to how angel groups, as in your angel groups, and angel groups in general, tend to work from to educate businesses out there who are maybe thinking about looking for angel investment.
There's all kinds of things that you need to look out for. So timing, I would say, is a key thing. So we run an online physical pitching session every month. Most networks in the UK consist of 40, 50 members, and they run a pitching session once a quarter. Well, if you're not on that quarterly pitching session, you're 6 months in, 5-6 months in, before you can gain an opportunity to pitch for the money that you're looking to raise. So you've got to understand the landscape that you're going in. You've got to understand the structure. I don't agree with events that are just purely fintech, where you'd have 6 fintech, because all that will happen is if you've got 6 fintech businesses pitching, the investors will pick the best one, possibly 2, because they've got an ability to compare with each other. Now we won't let anybody pitch who are the same for that very reason, so that we'll appeal to different people in the room, so that everybody's got a fair chance of getting something. So you need to kind of research them. You need to understand them. Some angel groups are very kind of parochial, very much interested in their geographical location. Some less, well, less so. We've got too many members. We're right across the UK. But still, we've got a physical group in Leeds. So we do get a lot of interest for people who are kind of Leeds-based. So you need to understand and research, and I'd suggest for anybody trying to do that, go into the UK Business Angel Association site, and there's a full list of all members in the UK, and any group that's serious about what they're doing will be a member, and they're all listed there, so you can go in there. It will give you the details, the contact details of who you need to speak to, and their profiles, who then look at what the amount of money they're looking in, what stage they look to invest in, what types of businesses they look to invest in, etc.
Okay, great advice. I mean, there will be a link in the show notes to UK BAA, so anybody who's interested can go there. In terms of how we run our group, or your group, and I'm a member of, it's very, I mean, the easiest comparison is like Dragon's Den. But there's more of us and we have less money.
It's not even real, isn't Dragon's Den? Even the lift isn't real. It's just a room people walk through. It's just a TV show. It's nothing.
I know. I've been told that. So, in our scenario, we see 4 businesses. They come in, they pitch for 5 minutes, then we have a Q&A session. So what would you recommend to a business that they put into their pitch deck, when they're pitching to an angel group?
Less is more. I cannot begin to tell you that enough. What you're pitching, you're not pitching for investment. You've got to get that out of your head. You're pitching to go to the next stage in an investment process. Nobody on the day will say to you, it's happened once and I've been doing this a long time. Nobody on the day will say to you, oh, this is wonderful. Here's 50,000, 100,000. Good luck. I'll see you on the other side. Doesn't happen. What they're going to say to you is, this sounds interesting. I want to know more. So what's the criteria then that you need to get across in a pitch? I would suggest it's 85, 90% about you. Just like Bill. was with us. Do I like them? Do I believe them? Have they got passion? Do I really engage with what they're doing? Yeah. And what do founders do? They put all these words up on the slide. So the very opposite of what you want to do, you do. And what you say to the audience, because audiences as a whole are pretty, we do what we're asked. So if somebody puts a load of words up, we read them. But now we can't get your passion, we can't get your enthusiasm, because you can't convey that on a slide. And you've actually shot yourself in the foot. Me, I'd have a slide with 2 words on and just talk to my audience, because that is where your enthusiasm, the number of times you've seen it, Phil, people go out the room and somebody says, they're great. They knew everything. They got their finger right on it. They knew everything. Yeah. And that's what you're trying to get to. Yeah. But please, as a rule, I always say that entrepreneurs speak French, angels speak German. My job is to translate. Yeah. But they're business people. Talk business. Do not talk tech. Tell them about because that's what they'll understand. They won't understand your technology. You can't expect them to understand if there's 5 people pitching 5 different lots of tech. That's just unreasonable. But I can assure you, they're very bright people and they will understand your business model, how it makes money, how your distribution works, and they will see the challenges and opportunities.
Totally agree. And you know, we're not picking out techies here, but they do get very excited about how it does what it does without explaining the problem it solves, which is the key thing. You know, the 2 key questions are, what problem does it solve and how is it better than the current solution? And if they can explain those 2 things, you're halfway there already, aren't you?
The problem is people talk about what they're comfortable talking about, so that they go to the safe ground. And I'm comfortable talking about tech because I know more about this than you. Yeah, that's great. And you've given us a slide on it, and we kind of got the gist of it. Now talk to me about business, and you don't. And therefore, we kind of think to ourselves, is this going to fail because you're just a techie? Because you're not a business person, are you? You're not coming across as somebody that will deliver. Just like when I've got another, that pitch was that I did back with Bill. There was another element to that was fascinating as well. But when you're pitching, there is so much to do. It's not just telling somebody about tech. It's giving them the confidence that you're safe hands, that you will do, or you will die trying. You will do what you're saying you're going to do. And you've got to believe, they've got to believe you.
And I think the other thing is, not only, it's easy to say, well, we're going to do this, this, and this. Fine. It's actually, as you said, we're going to do what we're going to do. But you and I know the shit is going to hit the fan at some point. And it's actually, will you be able to deal with the shit hitting the fan? Maybe it's pivoting, maybe it's, financial, maybe it's technical, maybe it's supply chain, but the shit will hit the fan. And are you capable of dealing with that when it happens?
And I mean, I was very fortunate when I was pitching for £3 million because I got the perfect example of it hitting the fan during the pitch. So I was partway through the pitch and I was doing it, and Gavin, the chairman of Lloyd's, stopped the room and he went, "Whoa, Martin." He says, "I don't believe you." And you could have heard a pin drop in the room. Boy, you could have heard a pin drop. So my heart's racing. As you can imagine, I'm stood up in front of this room. I've got all the great and the good. So I said to him, and now I was quite experienced, so I said to him, "Gavin," I said, "would you be kind enough just to explain to the room what it is that I've just said that you don't believe, please?" And then he explained to the room. And I said to him, "Well, I'm not going to answer that." And I used the power of silence. I just let it hang in the room. And I says, "And I'll tell you why." I says, "Because you lot are all going to ask the same question. I says, are you going to believe Gavin, the chairman of Lloyd's Bank, or are you going to believe Martin, who's trying to sell you shares in his business? I says, I feel like a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. I says, I'm not going to win. I says, but what I am going to do, I says, I'm going to let my non-exec director, who's ex-head of e-commerce for Norwich Union Bank, I says, I'm going to let him take the question. I completely changed the power imbalance in the room. I was experienced enough to realise there is a time to pick a fight and a time not to pick a fight. And that was one I wasn't going to win. But I was group sales director previously, and I knew when not, just when to shut up. So I brought this other guy in, and this other guy, I knew the answer. I could have done it. But this other guy came in and he answered him. And Gavin turned around to the room and he just said, my apologies, everybody. I completely agree with Martin. I misunderstood you. And I could hear the money fall in the bank. I mean, I could hear it falling into the bank. So, you just don't get, when people are pitching, they can get a bit defensive and it's a turn off. You don't have to know all the answers.
Yeah.
And don't fight with your audience,
Yeah. What sort of questions tend to come up regularly when businesses are pitching?
Top question is valuation. You're always going to get a question. And to be honest, again, for my masters, I went out and I spoke to 23 different groups and I asked them the question, how do they value a business at this stage? And I stopped asking it after number 8 because they all said the same thing, which was buggered if we know. So they said there's no formula, there's no equation, there's nothing. It's just a gut feel. I'd say that's a champion, that's a top one. And then the other one's really just around the kind of the commercial. It's about cash flow quite often, because cash flow can be key, certainly on certain types of businesses. But it's understanding that first contact to cash in the bank. And if you can communicate that, if you can stand in a room full of investors and you know those numbers and you know that process, and then everybody in the room just says it, they just feel so comfortable. The fact that you're in control of that process and you know how long it takes.
Right. Okay. So the key thing you just said there is on valuation, because I was going to ask you about this, and I've seen it hundreds of times, and I screamed at the telly when Dragon's Den do it. Valuation is there are systems and there are processes to value things, but in your experience, it's just what the angels feel it's worth and what the business feels it's worth, and it's a negotiation. It's somewhere in the middle.
That's what I tend to see. It's in nobody's interest, believe it or not, that the angels have too much of a share to start with, because it's in everybody's interest that the founder is there for the journey, because we're backing you as a founder to go the whole journey. And what happens if you dilute too much and then you bring in a VC is I've seen so many professional managers get introduced into a business, and then all of a sudden the person that we backed is no longer there, or they've no longer got the influence that we once thought they had. So it's really, really important that angels understand what that dilution journey looks like for the founder, to make sure that they're going to get out of this, hopefully, they're going to have a reasonable glass at the end of the party. But they've also got to understand what the businesses fail to understand is that it's a risky game, and that a number of businesses will fail. And it's like the music industry, the successful few pay for all the failures. Yeah. But the angels have got to take that on the chin, and nobody ever appreciates that. Nobody ever comes back and says, I don't see a founder when they've gone business, when their business goes bust, coming back to the angels and apologizing and saying, look, I'm really sorry that this didn't work, because they just kind of tend to disappear. And it's just like, we know you don't go bust intentionally. Yeah, but it's not easy. That valuation question is probably the most tricky one, but just have an open conversation. But you've got to start off with a valuation. A lot of businesses come to me and say, "Well, can we not just pitch, not have a valuation?" And I'll say, "No, you can't. You can't show somebody a car, and then them say, 'Yeah, I like this. I wouldn't mind having that,' and then turn around and say, 'Well, I'm not going to tell you the price.' I mean, that's just silly. You've got to stick your flag in the ground. But and what most people do is they'll say that, I just want 250,000, a 2.25 million valuation because it's 10%.
Yeah.
And it's just like they don't want to. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just I want 10%, so therefore that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, we've seen it lots and lots of times. I think as long as somebody gives an explanation why they think they're valuing it at that figure, then fair enough. But, we have seen people that say, oh, Google bought this company at, this multiple, so our little startup based in Halifax is worth the same. We go, no, it doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No. And it shows real naivety in them thinking that as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just taking it a step further. So let's say, we've seen businesses, they come in, they're pitching for investment. What are most startups looking for the money for? I mean, you mentioned before about growth, but where do they tend to spend the money?
I suppose it's fundamentally in three areas. It's people, tech, and marketing. I would say the three main areas. With the development of no code, that's probably reduced down some of the tech that now people are needing to spend. But people, talent is, because it's all down to people. It's people that deliver results. You can have the best idea in the world, biggest market in the world. Everything can be perfect about what you're doing. But if you haven't got the skills to deliver it, it's going to go nowhere. So you've got to get the right people. And getting the right people into an early stage business is not easy. How do you attract them when somebody's paying twice as much over there with a pension and it looks secure, and it's very difficult to get them in. So that's tech, people, and marketing.
Before we carry on, I want to talk to our viewers and listeners about the Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal. The Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal has two sides to it. My side of the deal, each week I bring you inspirational, motivational, and educational, like Martin, guests free of charge. You, listener and viewer, have one part to do on your side of the deal, and that is to recommend this podcast to one other person who you think will get a benefit from it. So that's the Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal. Sound like a fair deal, Martin?
Sounds fair to me.
There you go. So let's put ourselves in the minds of a startup just about to turn up and pitch to our group. What should they be looking out for when they're asking for money?
I think I'd understand what dilution looks like. I think you've got to ask enough to go up that proof journey point. So get to the next stage where you can say, right, we've now validated and proved this. And then you go again. The problem is with doing that, and it's not easy, is that I remember a friend of mine came to me years ago and said, he showed me some software, and I says, it's great. I says, why are you showing me it? And he said, NatWest have offered to buy it. He says, and if I won't sell them it, he says, they've offered to do a joint venture. And he says, and if I won't do a joint venture, they've offered to be my first customer. And he's a very good friend of mine. And I said to him, I says, I know what you're going to say to this. I says, which have you chosen? He says, first customer. I says, why? He says, it's the most fun. I says, are you doing it for fun? I go fishing for fun. I says, but are you doing it for fun? I says, is that why? Is that your motive? me, I'd have gone for joint venture. I says, because they bring the market, which is the hard bit, and they've got the money to support it. I says, becomes more of a process then. Anyway, he didn't, and he went through 23 rounds of investment. He actually told me that he finished raising on one deal, he says, and he started his next raise in the lift on the way down from that presentation. And he went over to the States and he brought back to the board a deal from a VC for 350 million for him to go into Europe. He got to break even with 400,000 customers. This was a good guy, mate. No bones about it. It was a good guy. It was a good product. And he came back to the board. He said, right, I've got an offer here for 350 million so we can go into Europe. And they turned him down. And they said, we want to take a different strategy. And that strategy doesn't involve you. He had less than half of 1% of the shares in his own business.
Yeah.
Just, why? You've got to start off with the end in mind. You've got to know where this is going. And, you cannot, that's just mindless to me. That is just senseless. All that time and effort, and some VCs are going to end up owning it. And it's just like, but it was your inspiration. I get frustrated for founders so I'm always trying to help them. I'm always trying to make them think about these things so that they know the journey that they're going to go on.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's people love to hear about disaster stories. So go on. What other disaster stories have you seen and experienced with startups looking for angel investment? Without naming names, obviously.
Probably, I was just thinking that. I remember one guy that came to me years ago, and he was showing a product, and I said to him it was software, and I showed it. I says, just stop developing. I says, go to the market. He says, it's not ready. I says, I don't care. I says, go speak to your customers. I says, they might not want what you've done. I says, or you might have already done the bit that they really, really need today. I says, go talk to them, find out. I says, stop developing software. And he didn't. And he came back to me 2 years later. He walked into my office. He sat down in front of me and he burst into tears. And he lost a lot. He's put his house in it. He'd put absolutely everything in it. And he says, I didn't listen. He says, I've still not spoken to a customer. And it's like, when I set up Angel Groups, I put a plan together, no software, I didn't spend a penny on software. I went out to see a particular VC group and I got to see the chairman. I sat down and I showed him what I was doing. And he said, who's going to buy this when it comes to the exit? And I said, you are. And he burst out laughing, and I was there. And he burst out laughing, and he said to me, he says, you're probably right, Martin. He says, it is the kind of thing we'd buy. I says, would you buy it for, mentioned a price? And he went, doesn't sound unreasonable, does it, Martin, if that's what you do? I says, right, okay, thank you very much. So I went to the time and trouble of actually validating an exit before I even started building any software or doing anything else. I am a founder, me, just like all the other people listening to this call. I'm just going on the same journey. So I get it. It's there's a lot of easy mistakes to make.
I mean, there's two great lessons in there. Number one, validate your exit before you start, and two, speak to your customer. And because your customers are the ones who are going to say, I don't like that, but I do like that, and I do like that, and I've got this problem. Can you solve that problem? And you've validated your product before. And again, we talk about angel investment before. When somebody turns up and pitches to us and they say, I've spoken to 10 customers and they've said X, Y, Z, and this does what they say, then we go, yeah, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then all we ask is in due diligence that we get to speak to one of those customers, or we get some proof point to say that is what they're saying. And because as a founder, you'll only carry so much weight when you tell somebody something. But if you bring in that third independent party to actually come in and say, look, I work for Morrison's and I can tell you this is great because, and then it's like, all right, okay, right. Because they wouldn't do that. They just, they'll come on a call, but if they're not going to not tell the truth.
Just one final question, because I know many startups start because I don't want a boss, I want to work for myself. Does getting angel investment on board stop that happening, or are you bringing a new boss on board and then you're sort of back to square one?
Yeah, I wouldn't get to the point of not having a boss. We've all got bosses, the customers. You answer to somebody, yeah. And when you get shareholders, you answer to them. But I'll tell you something: answering to a shareholder, yeah, is a great thing. You might not think that, but I absolutely guarantee you, it's brilliant, and it's brilliant because it gives you the business discipline you need to succeed. Because you've got to report on a regular basis where you're up to. And forget the reporting. Yeah, it's your information and you've got it and it's driving your numbers and it's giving you what you need to know to grow. But would you do that if they didn't hold your feet to the fire? Some wouldn't. And having somebody hold your feet to the fire is crucial. And some people get worried about that. I would say embrace it. I would say best thing you'll ever do. To me, it's the biggest upside of angel investment is having people that will ride side saddle with you. My investors are involved in my business. Fantastic. So helpful. And they only lean in when I ask them to. And my goodness me, do they lean in when I ask them to. Really helpful, really great. But they've never asked me for reporting on anything. Never once. Yeah. But I know I've got to give them it contractually. I give them it. And by giving them it helps me. 1,000%. Brilliant.
That's great. That's a really positive way of looking at it. That really is. One last question then, Martin. If somebody wants to pitch to our group, or indeed if anybody wants to become an angel investor, where do they find you?
Just go to www.angelgroups.co.uk. If you're a business, you'll register on the platform. The system automatically creates a match between your profile and our angels, and it gives me a list of how many angels we've got that meet your profile, and then that gives us a feel whether we've got enough to actually help fund you as an opportunity. So, and the same as angels. If you want to register, by all means, we've got online events, we've got physical events, and we're also doing something very exciting at the moment called the 100 Club, which would be great to get more people involved in that.
Oh, you need to tell me all about that. Martin, it's been absolutely fantastic. Really educational episode this week. Thank you very much indeed.
No problems at all. Thanks for your time, Phil. Thank you, everybody. Cheers.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you hit the follow button so every new episode gets sent straight to your phone.